What's up, ladies and gentlemen? The Game Philosopher's coming at you live from the power of the internet and stealing Boogie2988's introduction like a dick. And speaking of Boogie2988, we are talking about him in this video. Now, just recently, Scratchpoint and I think it was Saturday, we're going to do a podcast together, but the problem with the podcast is that apparently the technology got screwy within the middle of it, and you can't really trust technology very well. So instead, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the whole entire thing was about from my perspective, and not necessarily respond to that whole entire 2-hour-long video, because let's be honest, I really don't have the time for it at this moment. And another thing is that since I still need to work on the display in my videos, problem is that if I responded to something that big, my voice would probably be screwy, because I don't regulate my voice very well and it gets really rough at times. But since I am slowing down, what's going to happen is that I will make less mistakes. No, I'm still going to make mistakes. I'm going to allow myself to make mistakes. Otherwise, I will publish nothing by trying to force myself to perfection. That's just impossible. And anyway, talking about the issue first, my refutation to you, Scratchpoint. This will pretty much destroy everything that you said about Boogie2988 without any proper response you could really do. Nice point, Scratchpoint, but can you do this for $100? See, a $100 chair. Lumbar support is down here, and neck support, and it's a very interesting chair. So yes, now that I did that cringy meme reference, and giving the finger to PewDiePie, time to talk more seriously about this stuff. And I really think, if you've noticed, and even Scratchpoint pointed it out, that at first things were kind of hostile between us when it comes to the comments in his video. Then things started to become more nice. I published my video, I think, right as I was still kind of angry and uptight about the whole entire calling Boogie2988 a emotional manipulator, which, he might deny it, but he actually does it within his whole entire title. But at the same time, when you think about it, the title actually was more something to draw an audience in. Now, I don't necessarily agree with this type of strategy, and here's why. When you do stuff like that, and I was not the only guy who kind of got a little woo about it within the comments. There were actually a few others. When you pretty much make a claim like that, which is meant to rile up the entire audience, what's going to happen is that you're going to have people like myself or someone else in the comment, particularly people who like the said person for whatever accomplishment they've done. People immediately assume bad intent in the videos. And now, I've already established I actually don't think Scratchpoint is a bad person per se. I actually recognize that in his video, his podcast, he was actually treating me rather fairly, while you had a lot of trolls who were kind of making fun of me for not being good with my display, with the roughness that I had in my voice, because I was kind of speaking from the neck instead of in the chest and diaphragm, which stresses your voice out. The lack of breathing regulation, a tiny bit of rushness to my video, which I was not spending any time trying to polish anything up, which of course I don't have any real editing skills, so I don't just make a video and polish it up right after. I actually, if I want to polish it up, I will actually stop the camera or stop the video by pausing it, then take a breath, whatever, get a soda, continue on, and that's how I could polish it. But at the same time, there are some flaws to the way I do things, and things are not always perfect. And yet, if I were to keep putting bad content, bad display of content out, people won't watch it. But at the same time, if I were to try to push myself to perfection, when in fact we are not really perfect beings, especially when I really have always ignored the display side of things, hoping that my content, which usually my content is actually excellent, would appeal a lot to people, that the problem starts right there, that people actually don't care so much for content as much as they care for the display. And with the Scratch Point video, when he calls Boogie2988 emotional manipulator in the thing, the whole entire strategy, I think, really is not the type of strategy I would have used, and so that's pretty much something that kind of irked me a little bit, and it was my bad. I probably should have watched more of the video, because there's actually a lot of points I actually do agree with, and I really think that Boogie2988 would probably find a lot more happiness. I'm not assuming per se that he doesn't use the emotional problems of his as a weapon or a defense mechanism against criticism, but I think he would find a lot more happiness if he would man up and deal with criticism. For example, with how I do it with the podcast, if you watch it, you'll see this aside a bunch of comments. Some people were trolling, some people were asking questions, some people were just commenting on the bad quality of my video. And what I did, even with the troll comments, is I looked for what was valuable to me. And when I looked at the valuable, I thought about it, and I accepted the criticism, and I started to try to apply it better, which is why this video is actually a lot better in many ways than, say, the video which kind of started this discussion, where I replied to Scratch Point with a pissed off attitude, and yeah, I was not really doing the right thing right there in particular. But I think there's really something to be said about taking personal accountability. And I think really the weird thing is when Boogie2988 got the whole entire cops called on him situation, really he admits later that he had suicidal tendencies, and he shouldn't have really said that he had suicidal tendencies, because that kind of triggered that situation. But at the same time, he got really pissed off because the guy called the cops to try to save his life, and he was saying that it was not the best thing to do because suicide and cops with guns don't really mix. Well, that's a true point. Really, the thing is, it's not so much what that guy did. It's more Boogie should think about more what he did that might have triggered that type of situation, and be like, oh cool, I should change in the future and it will never happen. Then after that, you have more of a confidence or assuredness that such a event will not happen, and that you will pretty much be free from that type of stress. And really, it's all about learning, and when you learn and you have the knowledge, you'll be more confident to get things done. And that's really mentioned a lot with the Platonic dialogue where Socrates is talking with his generals, and one of the things he does is he tries to define Andrea, which is manliness or courage. He defines it accordingly as a type of knowledge where you are knowing what to do, so you act on what you know how to do. So you are very confident in your knowledge, and so you are able to decide this action or that action, and that's really what Boogie2988 needed. And anyway, this is a 10-minute video, so I'm just going to stop right here. Scratch point, thank you for the discussion. I hope we can do a actual discussion in the future. Please invite, I would love it if you invite me back on your podcast in the future, and hopefully my equipment doesn't screw up on me again. But we can only hope, because my equipment really honestly sucks. Like, my computer's an all-for one. And so, all-in-one, where I have a external webcam and external mic, and so you hear a lot in the background, so I'm not really sure if this phone camera is picking up the sound in the background, or the speaker rather, but you can hear the hardware going with its machine sounds, and that really screws with the quality, really. So anyway, without further ado, thank you. We'll speak later, and please give feedback. Tell me if there's any way I could improve this video. And I still have that funny lotion thing in the background from a philosophy of memes video. So, cool.